All right, welcome 6 Minutes. Jason Fulmore, SC Wrestle. Tonight I'm here with the dynamic duo out of Carolina. Carolina Takedown Talk, Rhett and Ryan. And if you guys, I'm sure like 99% of the people who are watching this know and follow you guys and follow you online. But there might be a few that are around the Southeast who don't know about Carolina Takedown Talk. So Rhett, why don't you just give us a quick breakdown of what you guys do and all that?
So we are a North Carolina wrestling podcast. We cover wrestling in the state of North Carolina. And it started out, Ryan was actually my coach in high school. And we were always just nerds about it, right? We'd all, like, on the bus rides back or to and from duels, we'd just be talking about the college duels coming up and who's wrestling on the other side of the state and stuff like that. And it never really stopped even after I graduated. And even after he kept on coaching and everything, we kept on talking about it. And last year, Wednesday, I think, Ryan, tomorrow I think is our 1 year anniversary, which is pretty cool of starting the show. I kind of called him up and we started talking about it. And I think he was writing for you and also for Frank Smithwick with Carolina Mat News, and just kind of said, hey, why don't we give this a shot? And if nobody listens, nobody listens. But let's, it's one of those things that I was kind of at the point in my life that I didn't know how long I'd be able to coach with just some, I've got a 5-year-old little girl, and but I wanted to figure out a way to get back to the sport and grow it. And we're both just super passionate about it. And Ryan wanted to figure out a way that we could grow the sport in North Carolina, and here we are. It took traction a little bit faster than we thought. It went a little bit bigger than we thought, but we love it, and it's been a really cool ride so far.
Very cool. So Ryan, how often do you have to correct Rhett on how many times he's wrong?
Too many to count. Every day, all day. Every day, all day.
Especially on some of these picks we're going to talk about.
So you guys started it in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah. So it's funny.
Yeah.
We started it using an app on our phone and just doing the audio version where, like, my daughter would be asleep in here and my wife would be asleep, and so I'd go out and sit in my car and we'd sit out there and talk for an hour doing our podcast, and I was just sitting out in the car before we figured out how to do the video side of it.
Got it. Very cool.
So, because we didn't want to do it in person because of all, with everything with the pandemic, we wanted to make sure that we showed everybody that we were taking the correct precautions, because we were preaching, hey, we want this tournament to keep on happening, and so we want to do everything that we could, and then whenever we felt safe that we could do it in person, we did, and we've been doing a YouTube side of it ever since.
So actually, I was going to ask you that, Ryan. Where can, if somebody hasn't followed you guys up to this point in time, where do they find you?
Yeah, so they can find us at any social media platform. We're on Instagram, Facebook. We're on Twitter as well. Instagram is probably our most active social media platform. And then we are on YouTube. That's where we publish all of our episodes are on YouTube now. You can follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel and just take in all that content.
Awesome. All right, guys. So we are here to talk about the North Carolina State Duels. For anybody who doesn't know, a little bit of background. It got delayed a little bit. I believe that was because of weather, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We had a lot of snow hit here.
A lot of snow. Before we all got on, Ryan said that he was a beach guy in the mountains, so that's why he's not really big on the whole going out into the snow thing. But it got delayed, so we had a Monday 2 duels, and then they advanced to the Elite 8, which will happen tomorrow or Wednesday. I shouldn't say tomorrow because who knows when somebody's going to watch this. Wednesday night. And then they'll wrestle 2 duels and advance to the finals, which will be on Saturday. So do I have all that correct? Is that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct.
All right. So we're going to get into the North Carolina Elite 8. We'll start with 4A, if that's good with you guys. But I'm going to jump around.
Let's do it.
I'm not going to go 4A down to 1A. I'm going to jump around a little bit. Okay?
Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to give a little bit of background here. And I'm going to show everybody a screen. And this is the bracket that it's really interesting to me for somebody who covers 6 different states, because everybody does it a little bit different.
Yeah, there's no like unison to it. Everyone's so different, it's crazy.
Yeah, and have you guys always had like 32 and moved on all the way down, or is this like a bigger year? I know you didn't have it last year, so Rhett, can you?
Yeah. So.
Okay, Ryan.
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So.
Ryan.
Yeah, so as far back as I can remember, 2A, 3A, and 4A have been 32-man brackets. 1A, this is the first year we've had 32. It was 24 previously, where the highest seeded team in the first round got a bye. But the brackets have always been this big, and it's always been based upon a conference qualification is how you got into the state dual tournament as far back as the early 2000s, since I started paying attention.
So Ryan, did they always separate like a east and a west, and that's kind of, you guys went through your each side of the state to get to the finals?
Yes, it's always been east west, and back up until I think 2010 2011 was the first year that 1A was their classification on their own in the individual state tournament, but they've always been separate. At least from what I remember, they've always been separate for the dual tournament.
Okay, cool. All right, so if you look at the brackets, and we'll go back to those in just a second, you've got a 1 seed on the east, you got a 1 seed on the west, you got a 2 seed on the east, 2 seed on the west, and they kind of all go out, and right now we're basically down to the final 4 for the east and final 4 for the west, right? For each of the 4 classifications. So I'm going to flip back over there real quick, and let's talk a little bit about, we've got Pinecrest, who has moved to the Final 4, and New Bern beat, is it Corinth Holders? Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Cary to get to the matchup there. Gibbons, who is the 3 out of the north, made its way, and Laney is on the top side with Cardinal Gibbons. So we've got those 4 teams to start, and I'm going to go ahead and jump on down here, and what we talked about a little bit before is, it's really interesting for these teams to kind of, I guess my question is that it's been condensed into a very short period of time, right? And is that tough on the coaches and the kids? I mean, really, they're wrestling potentially 5 duels over like 6 days. Isn't that correct?
Oh, definitely. I mean, and especially if you're one of the teams that's not hosting, like if you're on the road, this is a grueling week. Like it getting bumped from Saturday to Monday is that it's a tough task to get through this week and emerge out. And I think that could definitely take a toll on a few teams that just either may not be as loaded as others, but it could also help some. So it's a quick turnaround.
So Ryan, because Pinecrest has been at home and will be at home on Wednesday, is that an advantage for Pinecrest?
Yeah, I think it's a huge advantage for any team that's been able to stay at home the entire time. I remember when I was in high school, when my team made the state duels, we ended up going from first flight all the way down to Swansboro for round 1 on a Tuesday. It was Tuesday, Thursday at that point. On a Tuesday, back late the night, practice Wednesday, and then we had to go all the way out to the middle of state, which was another 4.5-hour drive on Wednesday, and it was very difficult on our team. So and like Rhett said, any team that has that travel component is definitely at a disadvantage. So Pinecrest being able to be home again is definitely an advantage for them.
Okay. So I actually want to put this in context for anybody who's not watching in North Carolina. So if you think about North Carolina like Florida and you just flip it, I mean, it's like driving from the panhandle of Florida all the way down to Miami, so going, like Rhett's saying, from there all the way over, right, is a long track. It's a long track for a lot of teams. So,
and one crazy part of it is, like, if you look at the 3A bracket, In the first round, East Henderson wrestled Inca, and they had to travel all the way to, I think it was, I'm pulling it up right now, to Eastern Guilford. So they had to drive 3 hours to wrestle each other whenever they're about a 20-minute drive from each other.
Oh.
On a Monday. Yeah, on a Monday. So I know for sure that Inca didn't get home. So Inca won the first round match of that. Then they fell to Eastern Guilford in the second, but they didn't get home until at least 12:30 last night. And so, like, imagine the teams that are moving on.
Right.
You know, so those kids gotta wake up, get to school, stay on weight, get a practice in, and then be ready to go Wednesday.
Whew. All right.
Yeah, just an example.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect example because I don't know that everybody appreciates it. I know all of our states are, you know, in different directions and everything else, and it's travel. But when you condense this, like Florida's was over 3 weeks, you know, Georgia's was over 3 weeks. When you kind of just condense this down into a week period of time, that's going to be really tough. So, but let's
Ryan and I have tried to talk about, like, we've kind of brainstormed, like, how do we think like they could do this better? And I don't know, except for, you know, span it out like a 2-week tournament, but then you're just taking a lot of wrestling, you know.
Yeah,
it's just
So let's jump over to 4A and let's talk a little bit about this first duel that we have here. We've got Pinecrest and New Bern. So, Ryan, if you're looking at one of these two, what is the path forward to get 8 wins? What's the path forward to get 8 wins for Pinecrest?
So for Pinecrest, who, you know, I've been pretty adamant for the past half a season to be the number one ranked dual 4A dual team in the state, despite the coaches on your coaches ranking voting them number 2. But so for them, the path to victory is pretty much they need to just do what they've been doing, and their hammers need to come to the party, right? They have state champ Matt Rowland, 2 state runner-ups in Dobeck and Hyder in the upper weights. They're really strong from 120 to about 138, and then their upper weights from Dobeck up are really strong and solid all around. So if those kids come and they do what they normally do, those 8 wins will come to them.
Okay. And how about you, Rhett? If you're looking at New Bern, you know, Pinecrest, I mean, I know some of these kids, and I'm not in North Carolina, and I know some of these kids, so I know how tough they are. What is New Bern's path? How do they get 8 wins out of this group, out of this duel?
It's tough. It's wrestling a almost perfect duel, almost a perfect night. I think it's picking up 6 whenever on Pinecrest guys that aren't studs. You know, they're guys and girls that aren't studs. And I think that's their only shot is whenever they do get a win. I don't think it can be 3. They've got to get 6 to close that gap, because when you look at Pinecrest hammers, when you look at Roland, when you look at Merchant, Dobeck, Hyder, most of those guys in this duel are looking at least getting bonus, and most of them getting a pin. So they've got to close those gaps and kind of cancel those out. But it's going to be a tall task to knock off for New Bern to pull this off.
So let's jump on down to the other side of this quad, because, you know, one of the things that's really interesting about this is that all 4 of these teams will be in the same gym together, and the winners are going to square off with one another. So, you know, it's going to be really interesting. Laney has really been like the team. So Ryan, you know, if you're looking at Laney against this Gibbons squad, what's Laney got to do to get by Gibbons and then match up with Pinecrest?
So Laney, bonus points are key. I think their whole lineup is solid up and down. Like you said, they've been kind of the team. They won Holy Angels, the tournament, by a large margin. And they have just stud after stud in their lineup. And I think if they just have the Lucas Cutto and Mark Samuel and Devin Bell, just those few kids that really stick out, Noah Thomas as well, just really stick out and have been placing high at every tournament they go to, state placers, state champs. If they get bonus right away, it's going to make a huge difference in this duel, just because Cardinal Gibbons, they're not short on studs either, and there's going to be a bunch of toss-up matches. So when they can get bonus, they need to get it.
Yeah. So actually, I'm glad you brought that up. So Rhett, I don't know North Carolina really, really well, but I mean, Liam Hickey, is a stud, freshman, I believe.
Yes.
Luke and Tyler Tracy, Savoy New. I mean, these are kids that I know across the Southeast. So what does Gibbons need to do? Where do they need to win to be able to beat Laney in advance?
So the really interesting thing about Laney and about this matchup is that Laney has studs right around Cardinal Gibbons studs. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see the coin flip, to see who has to show first on a few of these weights, because, I mean, just like I said in the last one, I hate to kind of be repetitive here, but it's Liam Hickey's got to get that win over, has got to get bonus over Robert Tan there, if that happens in 113. But we're also at that time of the year that everyone's kind of coming down, that wants to come down. So we don't know where, Cotto is. We don't know where Samuel is on where they're making weight, if they're coming down, because everyone starts that ascend right before regionals, or that descent right before regionals. Mm-hmm. And so I think Cardinal Gibbons is a tournament team this year. Laney's just so stacked up and down the board, and their ability to move and bump people around is what really makes them dangerous.
Okay. So are you taking Laney in terms of this duel?
Yes.
How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm going to take Laney. I think it's a lot closer than the public might perceive it because of like what Rhett said, that there's a lot of stud versus stud matchups. Like we could get Cotto versus Hickey, and we could get Luke Kuntz versus Harrison, those type of matches, Savoy New versus Devin Bell. So it's going to kind of cancel out some bonus point potential for Laney. But I'm taking Laney in that one.
Do you think that there's a if the studs kind of cancel each other out, and let's say they, Gibbons gets 3 and Laney gets 3 and that sort of thing, could it come down to kind of kids who are maybe a little bit more under the radar that they're going to actually determine who wins this duel?
I think so. I think Huntsberger at 160 for Laney is pretty vital as far as bonus points go. And I think up top at the bigger weights with Corey Pollock and Tristan Richardson at 220 and heavyweight for Laney, those guys are the kids that are going to have to come through, especially if those stud versus stud matchups are going to happen. So,
all right.
Yeah, for me in this duel, it comes down to 170, 220, and 285.
Okay. 170, 220, and 285. Yeah, and I think
it comes down to Alex Hopper there. Because if you look at Laney, they have like 2 or 3 murders row in their lineups. Most teams you kind of look at and they go from 145 to 170, and then it's kind of like, okay, let's not get pinned here. Like, we're gonna get our points here. But with Laney, it's 120 to 132 is solid. 138. I mean, it's just. All the way down the board.
And both of the teams. I mean, you have some, state champion versus state placer, or state placer versus whatever. For sure. Potentially in this duel. Now, somebody gets down by 9 points and they start moving pieces around to try to figure out how they can kind of get back into the duel will be really interesting. So let's jump forward to Laney and Pinecrest. So, Rhett, how does that match up?
Oh, man. So this has been the biggest one that I've kind of caught flack over, because Pinecrest thinks I just give them no love. That I don't, I am picking Pinecrest over New Bern. Okay, like I want to make that clear, so the Pinecrest can't say that I don't ever pick them. Okay, I want that to be on record. But that duel is awesome, and it's a rematch. And I know that's what Brian's going to bring up. Okay, I know he's going to bring up the Pinecrest already beat him this year. Laney's healthy. Laney's back, and we've kind of talked about that and how that duel went the first time. I don't know if Pinecrest has all of the hammers that Laney does to keep up with them.
All right, what about you, Ryan?
I'm on record. I'm going Pinecrest. They beat him once, and people could talk about how they didn't have people in the lineup all they want, but the facts are the facts. Pinecrest already won that match.
Yep.
And I think they're going to do it again in similar fashion. They're going to limit bonus points, and they're going to score bonus points when they can get them. And they're going to win a couple of these toss-up matchups. I truly believe that they match up better than any team in the state against Laney.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because actually this is one of the things that I want to make sure that it's very clear, especially to anyone who doesn't know dual wrestling as well. And that is matchups. It's 14 weight classes. So you get to 8 wins, you win. In fact, in Georgia, if you got 8 wins, you won 100% in the Elite 8. So, it's very rare. So you really kind of counting off. And when I put in the slashes are the ability for a coach to maybe move a kid who weighs in and move them up to a particular place. If you're looking at it, Ryan, in the Laney and Pinecrest match, you said limit bonus points by Pinecrest and win in the other matches. Is there a match that you're looking at in that duel that could be the difference?
I think 100% it's going to be in the 138, 145, 152 range. I think that's where Pinecrest can make up some ground. Laney has some really good kids there, but Pinecrest has some really underrated kids there that can maybe turn the tides when people aren't expecting. I think can get a couple upsets in that range. And if they do, that's going to be their key to winning the duel.
So, Rhett, you were just shaking your head. Do you agree with that? And I know you don't want to agree with Ryan, but is that what you were?
No, I know. I think it's a really good point. For me, it might just be because I'm a big guy, but also just the names. I think for me in this duel, it's going to be 170 to 195. That Jaden Dobek, Alex Hopper matchup. And then we've seen Bell down at 82. We've seen him up at 220. We've seen him at 95. Okay, he's so versatile that he can go any of these weights, and that's a massive game changer. Because let's say they even bump up Dobek up to 70, right? Or up to 82. I'm sorry, and he wrestles Bishop. Well, Bell can go up and wrestle Hyder at 95.
Right.
I just feel like that they're able to answer the bumps there, and I think that's the biggest thing for Laney is that if Laney bumps, I don't know that Pinecrest can answer the call.
Okay, all right.
On those bumps.
So just to be clear, Ryan's taking Pinecrest out of the squad, and Rhett's taking Laney out of the squad.
I am.
Okay. All right. Okay, I love it. Let's go down to over to the west, right?
Yeah, let's head across the state now.
Yeah.
Good 7-hour drive.
And we got Northwest Guilford versus Davie County. All right, so Rhett, what does Davie County need to do to be able to match up with Northwest Guilford? Because that is a stud lineup if I've seen one.
They need to bring a sledgehammer. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know what they can do for Northwest Guilford. I think the Northwest Guilford is one of the most slept on, underrated teams in the state right now. And I think that's also like that we've slept on them this year.
They feel slept on.
Yeah, they do. And it's one of those things that we've talked about, and we've talked about off air of just like, man, we talk about Laney, we talk about Pinecrest, we talk about Lake Norman, we've talked about Huff this year, and it's just Northwest Guilford hasn't really been in the forefront of it all, but they have been. They've just been kind of like just sneaking in right there, but dominating all year. And I think that's what happens here. I think the only 2 bonus points that we might see from Davie County here are going to be from Jack Jarvis and Hunter Testa in the whole duel.
Okay. What about you, Ryan? You got to feel Northwest Guilford's probably got the edge. Can Davie County can they minimize it to be able to make it close, or do you think that's Northwest Guilford's pretty stacked from top to bottom?
I think Northwest Guilford's pretty stacked top to bottom. They're really strong from 106 to 152 to from Pruden down to Drew, state runner-up Drew Pepin.
Mm-hmm.
But Davie County, starting with that with defending state champ, their Jack Jarvis there at 170, and then Hunter Tesla at 182. Their upper weights, it's going to be kind of a tale of two duels, I kind of feel like. From 106 to 152, it's going to be kind of Northwest Guilford's turn to try to score as many points as they can, get bonus points, while Davie County try to minimizes the damage a little bit. And then once they get to 170, it's going to turn to Davie County's turn to get as many points as they can, as Northwest Guilford tries to minimize the damage a little bit as well. So I think it kind of switches right at 170. And I think that if Davie County has a path to victory, it's from 106 to 152, limit the damage, maybe snag a match here or there if they can, especially at that 113 weight. And then when it gets to 170, Jarvis and crew is going to have to step it up and get those bonus points that they're probably going to desperately need.
Yeah, they can't give up 6 on the little guys.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and that's the biggest thing here is, I mean, that's the secret to every successful duel team, right? Is you minimize, you don't give up 6.
Yeah.
And that's what they've got to do here.
If you're given the opportunity to start with your strength or finish with your strength in a duel, which do you take?
I'd say start. Try to get as many points as you can, and then hold on at the end, I think.
Yeah, catch that momentum, start off strong, and then hope that. I mean, because you never know, especially in a duel in a state playoff. You know. Especially with this being at Lake Norman, right? This quad's at Lake Norman.
Right.
So the atmosphere is awesome there, right? And so it's going to be loud. It's going to be fun. And so you never know which freshman or sophomore or which unranked guy might wrestle out of his mind just because of the moment, right?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Rhett, because that's what happened, right? That's what happened in the Lake Norman versus Mooresville. Lake Norman was down. Came back, got 2 falls in the last 2 matches to tie it on criteria,
and then take it,
and then win it on criteria. So that's
insane.
That up, you know. So Rhett, I'm going to go back to you. Hickory Ridge, kind of a little under the radar. Been wrestling great. Can they take out Lake Norman? What is their path to a win?
It started right. It starts with Tomas Brooker. He is the heart of this team, 170. I think he's one of the best juniors we have in the state right now. Just a kid his ceiling is so high and he's growing a lot. But there's holes in Lake Norman's lineup. But they've got that murderous row from that 138 to 152, right? Eli Murray, JT Richards, Brody Neal. That's a big stretch for them, but they also have it at 220. Really, they can go 195, 220, and heavyweight there. They've got another stretch right there that Hickory Ridge needs to steal a win, I would say, in that 195 to 285. And they need to steal one at 138 to 152. They need to steal something in there. I would even say 138 to 160. On both sides, they need from 138 to 160. I think they need 2 there, and I think they need 1 from 195 to 285 to have a shot here.
All right, Ryan. How in the world can Lake Norman get up in this duel and not give everyone a heart attack in that gym? Who needs to come through for Lake Norman for them to be able to solidify the win over Hickory Ridge and move on to the Final Four?
So I think it comes down to 4 matches, and if Lake Norman wins 3 out of the 4, they'll win the duel.
Okay.
It comes down to Brett Foster and Connor Sousa at 113. Foster's been slowly building momentum all year long. Sousa's tough as well. I think that one's just a 50-50 toss-up, and whoever wins that one's kind of going to help themselves, put themselves in the driver's seat. And then the Murray brothers kind of, as they have been all year long, I feel like been a driving force of Lake Norman's success. Noah Murray kind of up and down year, had some bright spots, had some rough patches moments, but as Rhett kind of predicted, he's looking really good near the end of the year here. A win from him would be huge, especially if he could get some bonus. And then Eli Murray, he's been all the way down to 132, and the Coves has been at 126. So, and Eli has been wrestling all the way up to 145 at points for Lake Norman. They've been just plugging him where they need him. So if he and Colt Campbell match up at 132, who Colt Campbell's stud freshman from Hickory Ridge, that one's huge. If he can move, if he goes 132 and takes those points away from Hickory Ridge, that'll be massive. And then I think it falls at Brody Neal, another guy that just I saw Josh Stanley post somewhere, I think it was on Instagram, about how Brody Neal just does whatever they ask. He's wrestled 160, he's wrestled 152, down at 145 at points as well. I think if he wrestles 152 and goes against Leitner from Hickory Ridge and wins that match, those are the matches that are going to sway it one way or the other. And I think if Lake Norman gets 3 out of 4, they're going to win the duel because they, like Rhett said, they have Sakari and Carson Floyd up top, which that's a lot of points to have in your back pocket.
So do they get 3 out of 4 and do they advance or no?
Man, I'm so close to calling the upset Hickory Ridge over Lake Norman. Just how close that match was against Mooresville. But I think just having Sakari and Carson Floyd with a guaranteed probably 12 points just hanging there in your back pocket, that's a lot to overcome. And I do think they win a couple of those matchups. I think they are looking at that Colt Campbell-Eli Murray matchup and going to know that they can steal those points there. So I'm going to go Lake Norman over Hickory Ridge.
How about you, Rhett? Oh, there you go. Okay.
Going with the boys. Going for Lake.
Okay.
It's actually coincidence I was wearing the shirt, but yes, we're going with the Lake here.
All right. So then the question is it the Lake or is it Northwest Guilford?
That's a lot of fun.
All right, Brett. So we could break down, maybe give me one match in that duel that you think might be really important, but otherwise go ahead and tell me who's going to advance.
I'd say Eli Pendergrass, Noah Murray is my favorite match there, or Andrew Harger and Eli Murray. So both the Eli Murray's brothers matches there. I'm going to pick Lake Norman here. I think their upper weights, like I said before, Carson Floyd and Sakari, I just think that they're going to be able to bring it home for them.
All right. Ryan?
So I think the match in that duel that I'm looking at the most is LaCoves versus Dylan Pepin, the younger Pepin, and matching up at 126. I think that's kind of two guys that just kind of blue-collar mentality. They don't get the shine as some of their other teammates, just haven't placed as high at the state tournament, but it's a big toss-up for the duel. And then I'm going with Northwest Guilford over Lake Norman. I think Northwest Guilford is tough top to bottom where Lake Norman can have some holes. So I'm going to go with the better all-around lineup and go Northwest Guilford. After not giving them the love they deserved all year long, I'm picking them to make the state dual finals.
We haven't agreed on 4A all year. At one point, we have not agreed on 4A at all.
I got you. Well, you know what? It won't be the last time you guys disagree on something. So
you're right. You are right. You'll probably see it tonight again.
I'm sure we will. All right. So just to let everybody know, you guys are actually going to do a show on Thursday after this is done. So one of you will have to eat crow, and we'll have to tell everybody about what happened. But for the time being, we have our 4A picks. Let's jump down to 1A. And just to talk about 1A real quick, this has pretty much been Avery County's backyard. I mean, the truth is they're just dominant. I mean, people outside of North Carolina know Avery County and everything else. But there's some other teams within this Elite Eight that are pretty interesting and have shown a lot of mettle this year. Give me Ryan, why don't you give me one team besides Avery County that you're pretty high on?
I think the obvious choice for me is Robbinsville. Rhett and I talk about Robbinsville a lot on the podcast. Love Coach Odom and what he does there. They have 5 returning state champs, including Ansley Fink, girls state champion. So I love that program. I'm really high on them. I think everybody knows that's watched the show how highly I think of Avery, and I am gonna eventually pick them. Not to spoil it,
Yeah.
but at Robbinsville, there's hard to find fewer programs that are impressive from a kids that wrestle hard standpoint, and then just good character kids. They're just really good people. So,
all right. So, Rhett, I'm going to make you pick another team besides those two.
Okay. I mean, the obvious one out of the East is going to be URA Charter, right? They're added Aldo Hernandez. They're stacked all across the lineup. Grayson Roberts. They have kind of ran the East, and it's been this battle of URA Charter versus everybody versus Avery and Robbinsville, right? It's just kind of
yeah.
It's been going on for what, 3 or 4 years now, Ryan? With the URA Charter really stormed onto the scene, and they haven't left. It's been impressive what they've been building down there. That they've just continuously been just as good as Avery and Robbinsville. I mean, as every year.
So URA Charter and Rosewood and Robbinsville and Avery County are teams that we know of, right? Is there a team that Ryan? Is there a team that surprised you this year, getting to this point, or no, out of this group?
So out of the schools, the West, I've all year felt like those are the 4 best teams in the West all year. Mm-hmm. Thomasville is a team that I really wasn't expecting to make it to the Elite Eight, and neither was Pamlico. So both those teams really surprised me. I think Thomasville surprised me from their kids all up and down the lineup are really impressive. And then Pamlico surprised me in the fact of, wow, these guys really were able to pull some of these upsets that I didn't think they were going to be able to do.
How about you, Rhett? Would you agree with Ryan there? I know it's counter to what your nature, but
no, I mean it's tough too. But the biggest team that's impressed me, other than the top 3 of Robbinsville, Avery, and URA, Swain County. They came up out of nowhere this year and have been wrestling really tough, and they've been wrestling really well all year.
All right. So we've been talking about these underdogs. We've also talked about the big dogs as it relates to this. Let's start up out east. Sorry. I think of north and south. Sorry. Pamlico, do they have a path forward, Ryan, or no?
Man, it's really hard to predict a path forward with how stacked URA Charter looks. I mean, URA Charter's been just smacking people in duels all year, including some really good 4A teams like Cary. So it's really hard to predict a path for them. If they're going to win the duel, it's going to really boil down to they're going to have to take out one of URA Charter's real studs. They're going to have pull an upset over a Grayson Roberts or a Aldo Hernandez or a Doug Bowles or a Jack MacArthur. They're not going to be able to win the duel unless one of their kids in those weights beats one of URA's really top kids.
All right. So, Rhett, let's jump down to the Thomasville-Rosewood matchup. Does Thomasville, as kind of the underdog in this matchup, have a shot against Rosewood?
I think the East is a 2-dog race. I think it's URA Charter and Rosewood, with Jason Kennedy, Braden Holmes, Logan Torchel. Right. I think that those first 4 weights right there, Rosewood pulls away fast.
If we start at 6, maybe they could be making it up. But yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Right. They could be making it up either way, but I think that having those points. And I think all 4 of those weights go bonus. So,
right. And 24 points is pretty close to getting you, to where you want to be. Ryan, do you disagree with his assessment of the Thomasville-Rosewood match, or you agree?
As much as it pains me to, I'm going to agree exactly with what he said. I think Thomasville, Rosewood is closer than what I would have predicted originally. But like Rhett said, those first four weights that really could go bonus, and then they have a couple tough guys up top, led by Caleb Davis and Tyler Parrish. Those two kids have really been turning it on this year. So I think they got a lot more guaranteed, as guaranteed as you can get in wrestling, right? More guaranteed or more banked on points than Thomasville is going to have.
All right, so you just put 6 in your back pocket for Rosewood in that duel. Would we agree that they're going to get those 6 when they're facing URI Charter, or is this much more of a different story, Rhett?
That's a different story right there.
Okay.
But what's interesting with URI Charter and Rosewood is that their holes are the other team's studs.
It looks like it on paper. I don't know.
Right. I mean, like on paper, without any bumping, in a perfect world where this is exactly where they go, their studs don't meet each other, and so that's big. And I think it's going to be, well, which team can perform, which team's leaders can go out and get bonus, and I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Okay. So Ryan, I'm going to go to you. Is there a couple of toss-up matches in the URI Charter Rosewood, if they do cancel each other out, that might be the key to one of these two teams booking their trip?
Yeah, I think 220 is a big toss-up match. I know that Merriman from URI Charter is ranked higher, but I think the Rosewood kid there is just as good and can make that one. I think 106, even though Kennedy is a huge favorite state runner-up, the Ethan Hines kid from URI Charter is really tough freshman. So it might not be where Hines has a shot to win, but even if he just holds Kennedy to a decision, that's making some points up for URI Charter.
I think that's the best match of the day.
And if Kennedy can get those bonus points, that goes a long way for them. I also think could we see a Logan Tortrell Alder Hernandez state champ on state champ matchup? I know Tortrell's been down at 126, Hernandez at 132. I wonder if we see that. I doubt it, because both teams are going to probably try to maximize their points, but it could be they're thinking, hey, let's take away some big points from one of the other teams. So, and then I think we really could see Caleb Davis. He's been wrestling 152 from Rosewood, but he spent the beginning of the year at 160. I think he is pretty key for Rosewood, and that if he wrestles 160 against Grayson Roberts, that one I lean Roberts, but I wouldn't be surprised to see an upset from Davis. I really think highly of him. So,
all right, Ryan, we're gonna go with you. Who in this quad punches their ticket into the finals?
It's URI Charter. It's going to be URI Charter. I took some heat from a couple of the Rosewood guys, and I said on our last episode, I think it's going to be like a 42-24 or 38-21 type of dual score for URI. I think it's going to be not all that close.
All right. What about you, Rhett?
I think it's going to be a lot closer than that, but I do take URI Charter.
Okay.
I think Ryan's a little out of pocket here, trying to go with the blowout, the blowout of Rosewood here. I think they're a lot better than that, but I'm gonna go with. I think the URI Charter is a tougher team here, so I'm gonna give them the win. I'd say at most by 10.
Okay. All right. So let's jump down to, man, just a awesome quad. These four teams
one is fun.
in the same gym together is like, I mean, I don't want to say 1A royalty, but I mean, this is just a fantastic quartet of teams. So
if I wasn't having an elbow surgery tomorrow, I would be in this gym. Swain County is only about an hour and 15-minute drive for us, hour and 30-minute drive. I would be there for these 4 duels.
All right. So, Rhett, do you want to take the Robbinsville Swain County matchup or the Avery County Mount Airy? Is that how you say it? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I say it.
Rhett, which of those two do you want to take to talk about first?
I'll take Robbinsville.
All right, so let's take the Robbinsville Swain County. Swain County comes in as the underdog, I would assume.
Yes.
How can they? So I don't. Again, I don't know as much about small school North Carolina, but I do know Fink, Williams. I mean, the top of that lineup is tough. You got Jaden Noel down low. You've already talked about Fink. Where does Swain County find the points to counteract the studs for Robbinsville?
So Swain County is going to find the points here. I would say at 26 and 38 with Cotterman. I think Cotterman's got a good chance there at 38. And then I would say it's at 60 and 70. But other than that, I think it's bonus for Robbinsville.
So that gets you four. That gets you 4 matches on your way to 8. Is there 8 in Swain County? Are there 8? Unless there's a massive upset. Is there 8 wins?
No,
probably
I don't
not.
think so if we're looking straight up, no bumping anything. I mean, even if Swain bumps their perfect duel, right? I don't think that they can. I don't think they have it with the Finks. With that 182 to 220 run that Robbinsville has against Swain here, I don't think that Swain's got it in them. And they've had a great year. They've wrestled really well. They've turned it on here later on in the season and have been super impressive. And they're young. They're really young. Swain's here to stay for a little while. But I think Robbinsville's got it right now.
All right. So Ryan, do you agree?
I agree. I think I would add 106 into that matchup, or 113, depending on where Alexis Panama, and Ainsley Fink go. Because Kale Stevenson has a win over Ainsley Fink already this year. So if she goes 106, Stevenson's the favorite there. But it's hard to see a path to victory just because this is the 4th time they've matched up this year, and Robbinsville's won every time, and it hasn't been particularly close. A couple of the matches have been somewhat close, but not the nail biters like what we saw from like Lake Norman, Mooresville type deal.
Right.
And then in the same conference, so they matched up the conference tournament, and some of these matches occurred, and it leans Robbinsville wherever you go, pretty much right now.
All right, let's flip
for
down
me,
to
those that pointed out for Swain were best case scenario where they had a shot to steal a few.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a duel, so you get some momentum and something happens, you get a headlock, you get something happens, but the truth is the path is much more narrow for Swain County than it is for Robbinsville. How about Avery County, Ryan? I mean, they've been 1A. Does Mount Airy have a shot within what they're doing?
So I went on record at the very beginning of the year, first episode. I said it's not Avery County if, it's just by how much, and I still believe that now with that healthy lineup that they got in. They just don't have holes. They don't have any, right? You could say the matchup, if Mount Airy is going to see a path to victory, they need bonus points out of Alex Cox over Mason Bentley there, right? If they're going to see a victory out of them, they're going to need Franklin Bennett to beat Tristan Adams in a matchup of state finalists. Bennett, a state champ 2 years ago, Adams, state runner-up last year.
Right.
And then we could see, I know Medvar has been down at 160, so we could see Medvar versus Bradley Parker, 2 returning state champs, wrestling there in a preview of maybe the state finals. So they need to win all those, and then they need to get some of these ones that shouldn't go their way if they're going to win. And as we stated, as you said so well, the path is there. It's just their room for error is very small.
Yeah. All right. So, Rhett, I'm going to assume that you're agreeing with Ryan's assessment in that situation.
Off the bat, yeah. I mean, with the biggest thing that I've seen here is that Mount Airy has given up a forfeit in duels this year, and you can't give Avery 6 anywhere.
Right, because
you can't give them a single
because they're going to get 6 other places, and next thing you know, you're 24 points down, and things are getting rough.
Yeah, I think Ryan's
now the question is Robbinsville, Avery County, right? These are probably the 2 best teams in 1A. They're going to meet here in the the semifinals or whatever. Rhett, let's break down from the Robbinsville side. What do they have to do to beat Avery County?
They've got to get some big points out of 185, 195, and 220.
Okay.
So I think that we could see Cage bump to 220 and wrestle Zach Vance. I think we could see that matchup. I think we could even we could see Wachicha and Cage swap, and Wachicha go down to 195 and Cage go up to 220. I think Fink can pick up some. I think Fink can get or Kyle Fink. Sorry, there's 2. I gotta specify here.
Right.
Kyle's got to get 6. I think at 182. I think that's a big thing for Robbinsville. But there's a few other guys in the Robbinsville lineup that I think that the biggest thing for Robbinsville is them not giving up 6. And that's Carlos Wesley at heavyweight versus Levi Andrews. Levi Andrews is an absolute monster, one of the arguably the best heavyweight we have in the state of North Carolina right now. I mean, it's tough to argue it. And then, but I think the even bigger ones are Rios at 138, Lux Savage at 145, and Jarrett Panama at 152. Those guys cannot give up 6, and they need to minimize as much as they possibly can for them to have for them to win this duel.
All right, Ryan. Looking at Avery County's lineup from top to bottom, you've already said it. They are top. You're still taking them. If Robbinsville is going to have a shot, I think I agree with Rhett in his assessment on up top. What does Avery County kind of need to do? Like if let's say Shell gets a decision win, and let's say that Andrews gets a decision win, does this now become a pretty close duel? If they can get 18 from their 182 to 220s?
Yeah, so I did like a dual breakdown of this and put it up on our Patreon account. But
oh, you did? Okay.
And I did, and I tried to lean as much Robbinsville as I could. It kind of proved my point, and I was very conservative on the Avery bonus point train, very conservative. So even if Shell and Adams, even if 3 of their guys get a decision, I just don't see mathematically it's gonna make a difference.
Okay.
If Robbinsville is able to hold all of Avery County studs, including Andrews, including Ethan Shell and Parker and Adams and Ben Jordan and Kenneth Fritz, all those guys, if they're able to hold them all the decisions, and then Robbinsville wins the toss-ups, like at 106 and 145, and they get their 220, and then they win their big ones by bonus points. That's their kind of path. It's right. But it's narrow. But it's narrow because trying to hold off those Avery County kids from the bonus points, especially Rhett said it about Levi Andrews. The only every time Levi Andrews and Carlos Wesley have met, Andrews has won by fall. And I mean, that's just one. And then Shell, I mean, he's bonused his way through the state tournament the past 2 years. Yeah. And Avery, Robbinsville is going to get their bonus points too with Nowell and Kyle Fink and Cage Williams, who we all know how big a fan I am of him. But mathematically, I just don't see a path to victory for Robbinsville. I think Avery's just too tough up and down the lineup. If they just get a couple of guys to get a bonus point here or there, it's going to seal the duel.
All right. So, Rhett, before I give you a chance to respond real quick. So, I know what Ryan's going to pick.
We're passionate about this one.
He's going to pick Avery County. So, So while you give your response, I want you to make your pick as well.
Okay. So the biggest thing that I think has changed this duel, okay, or this potential duel, because they both
It's a potential,
have to win
right?
theirs.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah. They
Everything we talked about is potential here, except for the first round.
Correct.
The placement of where this is taking place is going to be massive. Swain County is right with Robbinsville. This is a home duel for Robbinsville. Robbinsville has Todd Odom, the head coach there, has claimed they're the greatest show in the state, greatest show on the road. Okay, they travel, they will be there loud and crazy, and their kids love it. Todd Odom has built this program around a family aspect of it. They go out there, they fight for their family. He's got 14 coaches on staff that each of them have a job, and each of them are unselfish, and they love these kids, and the kids want to fight for him. He's got the best facility in the whole state. And Avery County travels great. They do. But this is right in Robbinsville's backyard.
Does it make the difference?
I think that is going to be the biggest swing. I'm all in. Bet on black. I'm going Robbinsville.
Okay. All right. So it's so surprising you guys don't agree.
You think we don't like each other or something, that we can't agree, but it's just it is how it is.
No, one of the things I will say, and I think you guys brought it up at the very beginning of this, was that traveling, and who travels, how tired they are, making weight in a short condensed period of time, it does have an impact, and there's no doubt it has an impact. So it'll be interesting. I do think that from top to bottom, looking at Avery's lineup, it's pretty hard.
It's tough to pick against them. It is.
But we'll wait until tomorrow night and we'll find out. So it'll be interesting. All right.
I will say I don't want to pick a lot of the champs here, but I will say that the champ comes out of this quad.
Okay.
I think the 1A is I think it's ran by the West this year, from these two.
Okay. So let's jump to 2A. All right, Ryan. So let's let you give me a good overview of 2A. I'm going to give you the 2A West. So you jump down to the 2A West bottom, because that is just a fun side of the bracket. Go ahead and tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think all year, Rhett and I, and you've seen on your coaches' rankings, that the 2A West has been just hammers, especially in the same conference with Bandy's, West Lincoln, Newton Conover, who all made this Elite Eight, and then Trinity, Moorhead together in the same conference as well. Just really tough squads. Mount Pleasant falling to Newton Conover in the round of 16 here previously there. But man, it has been a nip and tuck back and forth battle all year long. At one point, Newton Conover was ranked number 1, and we were all in on that. West Lincoln beat Newton Conover. We were like, all right, maybe they're the number 1 team. And then Bandy's beat both Newton Conover and West Lincoln to move to the 1 slot. And it just because been mayhem all year, I feel like, as far as like trying to figure out who's the number 1 team.
So one of the things I want you to address real quick before I give Rhett the East and talk about that just briefly was, even though West Lincoln is the 12, they're not really a 12, right? So
no, yeah.
This has to do with where you finish in your conference and whether because all the conference champs are kind of seated above that point, correct?
Correct. So this is the first year we've used that system. I think the North Carolina Athletic Association wanted to move to more of a seeded system, instead of based on kind of a geographical system like we had before, kind of more seeded like a football or basketball state playoffs are. So they used to rank wrestlers in the RPI format. And what they did is, if you won your conference, you were seeded in the top eight-ish, unless you had a below 500 record, and then you had to be seeded with the conference runner-ups. And then the conference runner-ups that came out of conferences or wild cards were able to be seeded in the 8 through 16 range based on that rank wrestlers RPI. So the 2A West is where it really kind of a wrench was thrown into the system, right? I feel like the rest of the brackets have kind of worked out. There was a couple conferences that had one team that was seated really low because they were the runner-up or something like that. But this one with West Lincoln, Newton Conover, and Bandy's all being in the same conference, and Bandy's securing the 1 seed, left West Lincoln and Newton Conover to be all the way down at the 11 and 12. And like you said, they're not really an 11 and 12. So it kind of set up really crazy first round match for West Lincoln over Surrey Central. That one, Surrey Central is a really good team that quite frankly could have made the Elite Eight given a different placement in the bracket. And same thing with Mount Pleasant receiving the 3, and then the present they got was having to face the 11 seeded Newton Conover in the round of 16. So they seeding wise, Rhett and I actually talked about this on Monday morning, and it seems a little disingenuous in that them being 11 and 12 and kind of created a little bit of different matchup than we would have liked as a fan. We would have rather seen those matchups occur kind of later and maybe the round of 16 instead of round of 1. But I mean, equitably, I think it was the fairest way to seed it the way they did. We can't just eyeball it all the time and say, hey, West Lincoln ain't really a 12. Let's put them up at the 4, right? So equity-wise, I think it was the fair thing. But it definitely created, as far as seeding goes, if someone didn't know how good West Lincoln or Newton Conover were, they'd look at this bracket and say, man, this bracket got busted up.
Right, and it didn't really, because those were going to be some fantastic teams and fantastic matchups to begin with. So, Rhett, let's jump up to the East. And, you know, I love how prominent is it Bun? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. They're just all over social media. They're talking about, you know, they're just really hyped about the program, and they got the 1 seed, and they've looked really good up to this point. So talk a little bit about the East real quick.
Yeah. Bun has been a team that we slept on and caught a lot of heat in the beginning of the year. It was awesome. We still haven't figured out how to pronounce his last name. I'm going to take a guess. Kind of our thing on the show is we have to butcher a name every episode, you know? So I think it's Coach Parker Hake. You know, it was awesome. Beginning of the season, we were talking about the rankings, you know, the your coaches' rankings, and we kind of saw Bun sneak in there on one, and we're just like, who the heck are they? Like, who are these guys? They're nowhere near like Bandy's, West Lincoln, like that whole conference, right? Mount Pleasant, Reedsville. Mm-hmm. And the next day, like as soon as that episode drops, the next day, we're getting tagged from Bun where they hung up quotes from that episode up on the wall and said, like, they haven't wrestled anybody. The next one, who are they? The next, and have just been riding this momentum. And like, I don't know the exact max street that they're on, but I think that they've won their conference 4 or 5 years in a row now, and just have been silently building over there. And so it's super exciting to see. You know, that's what we want. We want there to be a powerhouse on both sides of the state, especially for this dual team tournament, right? Like you want your Laney, Pinecrest, and your Northwest Guilford and Lake Norman, right? Like you want that super, however it shakes up, you know, I'm going to be right and it's going to be Laney, Lake Norman. But you want those two superpowers to match up there and have that big battle, right? And so it's awesome that Bun's really growing, and the West, I think the West is really strong this year, but I don't want to leave out the East. Southwest Onslow is a very predominant program in the state. They've always found success. Haven't really cracked into those, you know, into the Bandy's conversation, into that Newton Conover, West Lincoln, St. Stephen, you know, that conversation. But have always been right there kind of knocking on the door like they are here. And then we've got 2 programs with Bartlett Yancey and Washington that I don't want to say they came out of nowhere, but you know, they did.
And I want to, and that's where I eventually wanted to get, was because, These are two teams that, you know, they were. I mean, Washington was 4 and Bartlett Yancey was 11. You know, from top to bottom, I mean, again, no shade on either of the programs, but I don't notice a ton of names off of the lineups. But obviously, They come together as a team and won some really good duels to get to this point. Now Washington runs into Bunn. So talk a little bit about, is there a path forward for them, Rhett? And if it is, what do they need to do?
So here's the thing about both these teams is like you said, it's kind of new, right? Like we've been talking this whole episode about, you know, Avery. You sit there and you look at a superstar lineup. You look at Robbinsville and they've got stud, Lake Norman, stud, Laney. These are the first two teams we've really seen of this tournament that they don't have that. And like you said, I don't want to throw shade and you know, talk bad, but like they don't have that one superstar yet. They don't have that one kid that's just on another level, right? On another tier, on a tier of their own. But they're all pretty tough. All these Bunn kids are really tough, and they've been brought up in this program that's been winning. They've been fighting for each other. And one thing that kind of that we try and work on, we're trying to get better. Like we said, we've only been around for a year now, so we're still trying to figure this out. Is that we don't get to see a lot of these East teams, right? We depend on track, and if you follow Ryan on Twitter, you know his favorite thing on the world is track wrestling and coaches inputting results really fast. But we depend on that, right? And so we haven't actually got to see any of these 4 from the East wrestle this year. I've seen a lot of results, and I don't know if Washington has it for Bunn. But here's the great thing is that I think all 4 of the both duels from the East in this third round are going to be very close. I don't think we have a blowout duel. Maybe Southwest Onslow and Bartlett Yancey, because of the forfeit the forfeits in there.
Yeah, the forfeits up top, definitely.
They're going to hurt them. But
yeah. All right, so Ryan, why don't you give me a breakdown, either of the 2 duels or actually the entire quad, kind of just what Rhett did.
Yeah, so for me, like starting up top with Bunn, Washington, I will say that at the beginning of the year, when I kind of put out a little promo cut, who's going to win the 2A East, I had 2 coaches that I really respect reach out to me and say Washington. They think Washington's the team. So not entirely surprising to see them here. The results this year, after seeing that, I paid a little attention to them going throughout the year. They just didn't turn in the results that I thought they would after those 2 coaches reached out to me. But the thing about their lineup, kind of as you guys were stating, they don't have kids that stick out as like, man, these are the super studs of the world, but they are solid up and down with really tough kids. I think they're really led by the Campbell brothers at 32 and 38, especially Isaac, the lighter one, and their 170 and 182 pounder, Hayward and Davis there. Those 4 are kind of their flag bearers for the team. Bunn, as Rhett said, like they've won a couple conference tournaments in a row, or 4 or 5 or so. Had a long dual match winning streak. I think they broke that when they lost to Cary this year. And then they're just really tough from 106 to 285. Not a lot of holes, not a lot of superstars, but not a lot of holes. They're 170. Watkins is really good. Not on that superstar level yet, but he's someone we could see emerge into someone who could place the state tournament. So that one I think is going to be a really back and forth duel. Is going to see several lead changes out of that one. And then as Rhett was talking about, Southwest Onslow has always been kind of like nipping at that top tier, I remember a couple state tournaments ago, maybe it was more than I'm remembering, but they had a couple kids in the finals at the state in the individual tournament, had a bunch of state qualifiers. The Armenta brothers were out of Southwest Onslow. They're really a well-coached team, and they're kind of in a really tough area down there. in southeastern North Carolina, right? So they got a really good program, have been solid. Haven't gotten a chance to face a bunch of the top teams in 2A, 3A, or 4A this year, but their lineup's really solid. Bartlett Yancey is the one that shocked me to see them in this point out of the 11 seed. We're kind of talking about on the West how Newton Conover was a disingenuous 11 seed and West Lincoln was the disingenuous 12 seed, kind of in the perception of we knew how good they were. Bartlett Yancey, I wouldn't have if you would have asked me point blank, I would have said, nah, you won't see Bartlett Yancey in the Elite Eight. But they pulled the upset over Seaforth and then over Webb, who both have some really good kids on their team, and just kind of put together that strong dual lineup, and we're able to make it happen. They got a tough call ahead of them against Southwest Onslow, especially because I think they're going to forfeit a few weights in there, which –
well, and I think that's I mean, to forfeit, to give up 12 points and still win duels in the state duels and be able to get to this point is a testament to the rest of the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So
yes, yeah.
But in honesty, I mean, Southwest Onslow should take care of business in this duel. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Statement?
Yeah, I think they will win and win handily.
Okay. So out of this quad, Ryan, you're first. Who emerges out of this quad?
So I feel like I was like 80% of those quotes on Bun's wall. I was lighting it up because I saw them ranked 5th, and I was like, who have they wrestled? They haven't wrestled anybody. Why are they here? I mean, I saw that on social media. I was like, yeah, 8 out of 10 of those quotes probably came out of my mouth. But after all that mess that I said, I do think they are the best team in the 2A East, and we will see them in Greensboro on Saturday.
All right, Rhett, do you agree?
Bun.
Disagree?
I agree. It's going to be Bun from the East.
All right, so let's jump to the West. And boy, a killer group of teams down here.
Yes.
You know, and again, I don't know North Carolina wrestling as well as you guys know North Carolina wrestling, but these are teams that I recognize, except for maybe Trinity. I don't know that I recognize Trinity as much as I see the other teams. You know, I definitely know Caleb Moore from Bandy's, you know, several kids on the Bandy's team, several kids on the other team. So let's, Ryan, why don't you take one of the two duels and talk a little bit about it, and then Rhett can take the other one. So which of the two?
I'll take the bottom. I'll go with the Newton Conover and Trinity duel.
All right. So take it and tell us what you think about it and who's going to win.
Okay. So I'll start with Newton Conover. So Newton Conover has been kind of one of those top echelon teams in North Carolina for the past 2 decades.
Yeah.
And this year is no different. After kind of a down year and a weird year last year, they're coming in hot here with some really big studs. They kind of got like a great mixture of superstars and really solid kids. So they got Isaiah Pittman, who's just a stud freshman.
Yeah.
Camden Spencer, who's really, really solid as well. And then Jordan Hines at 170 has been nothing but spectacular. And then they have Owen Clark. They're kind of the leader of the team, 3rd place last year at the state tournament. And then Joseph Tutty at 220 has been really a revelation. Not much out of him in the past couple of years, but he's going to place very high at the state tournament. So, and then the rest of their lineup, they just don't have a lot of places where it's going to be free 6s for anybody.
Okay.
They wrestle really tough. They're a hard-nosed team. They're going to ham fight you to death. Really well coached over there in Newton Conover. And then Trinity, man, they are a team that I didn't pay attention to much until they came to our way and they wrestled against Pisgah at the Canton Mills Invitational, I think is the name of it. And I started noticing kind of the results that some of their kids were putting out. I knew they had David Macomson. I think a lot of people know Macomson out of School of Hard Knocks, wrestled with Eli Boyd and the rest of that club crew. And he is every bit as good as advertised. But then some of these kids started emerging that I didn't know as much about, like Spencer Hall and Chris Grubb down low. And then up top with Colby Peel and their 52-pounder Casey Hone. Just those kids were really solid. Maybe not the kids that you're going to light the world on fire right now, but kids that are going to stand in there, they're going to scrap, and they're going to turn out some really good results. So Trinity has had an amazing year, but Newton Conover is primed and ready to move on to the semifinals. They just have that extra little kick of firepower to move on to the next round.
All right, so Rhett, do you agree that Newton Conover is the team that moves on? And if you do, and once you answer that, then let's jump up to that top duel, which is lights out. Could be a state final, honestly. So
it really could be.
Walk us through that one as well.
For me, Newton Conover's, just like Ryan said, they're solid across the board, right? They're tough, really. They're tough across the board. They've got a few of your kids that are going to place really high, and they've got. I think Isaiah Pittman. I've seen him in person a few times this year. He is going to be a stud in the future in the state. Trinity, I think, has that reputation of pushing out individual kids, individual stars. Your Makeupson. Or Mackupson. I think it is Makeupson. There I am butchering another one, so it's okay. But yeah, I agree. Newton Conover, they are over Trinity. But this next one is a lot of fun. And like you said, I do think that this could be a state championship duel, right? Bandy's did get the win earlier this year. And so it's one of those things, it's kind of tough if you want to go right back and just go with the previous result. Bandy's did beat them 39-23 earlier this year. So it's a little bit closer than some people thought it would be, but I think Bandy's has gotten better since then. I want to kind of go back a little bit with Ryan whenever he was talking about the west side of this bracket. He said we a lot, West Lincoln. We thought West Lincoln might be the number one. We thought Mount Pleasant might. He must have a mouse in his pocket, okay? Because I've been rowing the boat with Bandy's since day one of this season. Bandy's has been my 2A dual team state champ pick this whole year. I got to see the Bandy's Newton Conover duel happen this year, and it solidified it. They're solid from the top to the bottom. I think, and we're going to talk about him later. Is Fred T. Ford up in 3A? I think Bandy's is built very similar. Okay, they've got your Caleb Moore, like you said. They've got their Bodie Kirkland, right? They've got their Ian Moore. They've got their studs, but they've also got Austin Klein. They've also got Joey Levix. They've also got Trey Balu, 195 Zachary Evans. They've got even their, I don't want to say they're not as tough weight classes, are still brawlers and are still going to go out there, and that is just the mentality of this team. And you can just see how they wrestle as they go out there and they push the pace. It's almost like an Iowa style. They stalk, they push that pace, they want to score points, they want to be physical. I see it going the same exact way. I think Bandy's actually beats West Lincoln worse this time.
And you've already taken Bandy's over Newton Conover to
and row the
boat.
Yeah, right. I'm going Bandy's again.
So let's jump down to Ryan. And Ryan, do you agree Bandy's is the team that's going to punch their ticket?
All right. So to clarify, Rhett, what I was talking about when I said we was the general public. We, as in like we thought we.
I just wanted to make it clear. I've been with Bandy's since the jump.
Yes, no, you have. I remember even when you said that on air, I waited till we were off air, and I said, what is you doing? Why are you taking Bandy's right now? I just didn't think about it. Now, before I make my pick, I will say that Butch Ross.
Yes.
No, I don't know if anybody in the state is better at getting their guys ready for state duels and dealing with the travel, the making weight within the week than Butch Ross does, because they always pick off somebody they're not supposed to when they're not in that perfect mode of, oh man, that's the team to beat. They did it a few years ago when they beat Fred T. Ford. They did it a couple years prior, I think, to Newton Conover maybe. So no, I don't think anybody's better at getting their team ready than Butch Ross. But
right.
Rhett has, I don't know if it's just because he's been talking about it all year and he's finally just broken me down, or if it's because watching that Newton Conover Bandy's duel, I think it's Bandy's. I think it's Bandy's over West Lincoln, and then I'm going to take Bandy's over Newton Conover to come out of the West and be in the state finals. As Rhett says, I guess, row the boat.
Wow.
And this is really tough because the Newton Conover coaching staff's awesome. The Trinity coaching staff's awesome. West Lincoln coaching staff's this is 4 awesome programs in the state, and it's really cool to see this. And I mean, all of the programs we've talked about, really, they're great coaching staffs, but like you said, Butch Ross is a legend in the sport. So it's so tough to pick against guys like that. And Clark from Newton Conover, it's so tough. But Bandy's is just, the McIntosh brothers are back in that room. They are building.
And the truth is, I mean, some teams are built for the duel. They are built for
I think
taking care of 14 weight classes.
Yep.
Battling in every single position, in every single weight class. And you've seen that. I mean, that there are teams that are built that way, and there are teams that are built as tournament teams, and there's teams that are built to do really well in both. But I do think it's interesting, the 14 weight classes and how they match up, especially when you talk about Bandy's, their ability to kind of get the most out of every single one of the kids is really been pretty impressive.
I think the tournament in this one is a whole nother conversation that that I don't even know if we both take that same pick for the tournament team. That's what makes 2A a lot of fun this year.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump over to 3A, and this is our last classification, and we've been talking forever, so but that's okay. Love wrestling.
Sorry, we get carried away and get a little long-winded, and we like to argue a lot and get the last point in.
Well, it's all good. So I'm actually going to take 3A and talk a little bit about this, and the reason I'm going to is because one of the places I went this year was I went up to the Lake Norman duels, and I got to watch Union Pines and Ford. Both of those teams wrestled there against Cleveland and Baylor out of Tennessee, Point Pleasant out of West Virginia, just some West Forsyth out of Georgia, not the one in North Carolina. So I've seen these teams. They're both the ones in 3A, and I really came away impressed with both of the teams. Ford was super impressive. Not that Union Pines wasn't very impressive as well. And the thing that I noticed the most out of that team, out of Ford's team, was that, like you've now said several times, is how much they kind of fight for one another, how much they kind of really work to minimize, they don't give up bonus points. They fight through positions. They get them, they get bonus points when they need it, all those different things. So those are both the ones. Let's go to Rhett. Let's start with you. So do you think that those are the two favorites? Number one, question one. And number two, is there a team that's kind of under the radar in this bracket out of these 8 teams that we might want to keep an eye on before we start breaking this down?
100%. So I'm going to take the second one first.
Okay.
The team that's under the radar, and that is Ashe County. Ashe County has taken this tournament by storm, and is really where it was kind of Fred T. Ford seemed like it was going to be they were going to be the storyline of 3A. It's been Ashe County knocking off St. Stephen's, a historic program in North Carolina, and then knocking off. And I have to say this because Ryan's been a homer for the past 2 years, for the past 2 seasons now, knocking off his boys, and I love them to death, Marcus Jackson, the Baglios, and the boys, knocking off Central Cabarrus.
Yeah.
And, they're heading – they do have to head to Ford. They've got to wrestle a tough North Henderson. North Henderson about 15 minutes away from us here. We've got to see them a lot this year. Really tough team. Coach always awesome from North Henderson. We love that program. But Ashe County is that one this year that's You got to watch them because they're putting together something special. But
right.
I don't think that they have enough for Ford, especially not at Ford. It's another one of those venues, another one of those dual atmospheres that they do it the right way.
All right. So is Union Pines the favorite up top? And
yes.
We'll get into the details. I just want to know overall. Ryan, how about you?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Do you think that those are the two favorites? And then, I mean, I think we all agree with Rhett's assessment of Ashe County and really putting together a really nice run so far. So tell us a little bit of kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think Union Pines has been the best team in the East all year, and Fred T. Ford has been possibly the best dual team in the state, all classifications. I think a team that's kind of gone on the radar, and it's ironic that they're a 2 seed in the East, and they've kind of quietly had an amazing season. They're one of the most predominant programs in our state, but the last 2 years have kind of not had the seasons you would expect out of that type of program. Is Orange, and they've put together a really nice season, and no one's really talking about them except for them, right? Orange believes in themselves, but no one's really talking about them, and they have just as good a chance as anybody of taking the East. I think that it's going to be a lot closer than even we perceive.
Okay, so let's jump to the East, Ryan, and let's talk a little bit about that first duel with is it Currituck?
Yeah, it's Currituck County.
Okay, and they've had kind of a Cinderella. I mean, they've been wrestling really well as well. So
yeah, they look great. Beat my alma mater First Flight twice in the past couple weeks. They used, so when I was at First Flight, and it still is now, they're our biggest rival. They're about 40 minutes north of my parents' current home, and off of First Flight Outer Banks. They look great. Coach Fisher there is really building something special. I knew they were going to be tough this year, but I really didn't expect them to be this good. They have a freshman at 113, Jordan Tolliver, that is really something special. The Binkley brothers at 52 and 60, especially Ethan at 152, is really, really good. Jeff Klug, I hope I said your last name right, Jeffrey, but he's an athlete, one of the best football players in the 252 area code, and he's doing it on the wrestling mat as well. And then I've been impressed with Noah Reynolds at 170. He's kind of a really solid workhorse type of kid. Aiden Harrington kind of at 195, similar. So I didn't realize they were going to be this good this year in the beginning, and I know I probably give First Flight a lot of love out of the 252 compared to most of the teams, just because that's where I'm from. But Currituck is returning back to their prominence. Yeah.
So now they're getting ready to run into a Union Pines team that is really pretty good. I mean, I want to say they took it on the chin a little bit at Lake Norman, but they took it on the chin against Baylor is like the number 2 team in the Southeast. Cleveland was the number 3 team in the Southeast. And I mean, we're talking about some of the best absolute teams around. So, and it showed how hard they fought for one another. Does Currituck County have a path forward through Union County?
I think so. I think that this is more of a toss-up match. I think this is more of a toss-up match than we think it is. As you were saying just a few minutes ago, is duels are about matchups, and the way that Currituck County matches up against Union Pines is really interesting of how it could play out. I think there's a lot of matches that could go either way, a lot of matches where it's going to cancel out bonus points for both teams. And I think Currituck County hasn't been seen a whole bunch this year on like that middle part of the state. So we don't know where some of their kids are going to stack up, but I think that they have a really clear path to victory where it's more of a 60-40 in favor of Union Pines.
All right. So do you take them or do you take Union Pines?
I'm going to take Union Pines.
Okay. All right. So Rhett, Union Pines or Currituck County, and then talk a little bit about the next matchup.
Union Pines.
Okay.
I think they've got the horses in the stable.
All right. So now let's go down to this one. And And Ryan just made a case for Orange, and he made a pretty strong case in terms of, obviously it's a program that has been around for a long time. It's got a lot of tradition and those sorts of things. Maybe a little bit under the radar as a 2. How does this match up? How do these two teams match up with one another?
I think it's close. I think this is probably our closest duel in the 3A bracket. I guess Elite 8 here. I do think that Orange takes this, led by Braden Crawford.
Okay. All right. So, Ryan, is it Croatan? Is that how you say it? Croatan?
Yeah, Croatan.
So, do they have a path?
Yeah, they are, again, kind of Orange and Croatan, kind of similar stories where they kind of had a dip in their performance compared to what they're used to. And now this year they're back on the upswing with David Perry. I think this one, as Rhett said, I agree with that statement that this is our closest duel of the Elite 8.
Look at us.
And I know, we're getting along. And I really think highly of a couple of their kids, especially their younger kids. And I know I made the case that Orange is under the radar and can knock off Union Pines possibly, but I'm going to go with the upset special here, and I'm going to pick Croatan to beat Orange.
All right. So before we go over to Rhett, do you take Croatan to beat Union Pines and move on their way through to the state finals?
I'm going to take Union Pines over Croatan. Okay. I think, as Rhett said, they got more horses in the stable at the current moment.
Okay. All right, Rhett, do you agree with Croatan over Orange? And if you don't, why not?
See, it's tough because the matchups, they match up really well against each other. I think that Orange, this isn't going to be a big bonus point duel, I don't think. I think it's going to be a lot of decisions.
I mean, is this like a 3-point duel, 2-point duel? Is that what you're thinking?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think this could be a criteria duel.
Oh, okay.
I think this could be a Mooresville Lake Norman, like who. The biggest thing. So Crotan's got to win. I think 160 and 170, and they've got to get bonus at one of those two to win this. I think I think that's their path, but I think Orange takes it.
Okay, all right. You're still
moving
taking
into
Union
the next
Pines.
one. I still take Union Pines.
Okay, and I'm a data person, so probability tells you that Union Pines just seems to have the wider path. Doesn't mean that they are the only. The other teams have a path, I think,
right?
But they just seem to have more room
I really
for
like
error.
how you put that.
I'm sorry.
I said I really like how you look at that and how you put that. It makes a lot of sense. Of just this path is just smaller for other teams. It can happen. I mean, that's the great thing about wrestling is they've got to go out there and wrestle.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No doubt. So actually, this is one of my favorites, and let's jump down to or jump over to the West. And I really like this Ford Eastern Guilford duel. So Ryan, why don't you take this one and tell me a little bit about, Ford from top to bottom have been very impressive, but Eastern Guilford just won 2 really good matches to get to this point. I don't think you can sleep on them.
No, yeah, and we've been getting DM after DM on our Instagram or comment after comment on our YouTube channel where we did not mention Eastern Guilford at all, and people were telling us we should have been, obviously, or we were sleeping on them, and we were. We didn't give them the shine that they deserved, especially with that win over Inca in the round of 16. That was huge, and I think up and down the lineup, they're kind of one of those teams, kind of like we're talking about with Bunn. They don't have a kid that sticks out as like this next level superstar type of wrestler, but up down the lineup, they really wrestle well for each other. They got some kids that are going to really score points for them, and they can count on to score those points. And you're going to see them fight for every point against Ford.
Well, and just knowing Ford and looking at Ford, you got a little stud Carter Floyd for the freshman there. You've got Hunter Clark, you got Brock Carey, obviously Zane Burchett, up and down. I mean, they have their studs. So it will be really important for Eastern Guilford to counteract and win in those other spots. So Rhett, can they? I mean, you saw them against Inca. So how can they exploit the other weight classes and get it done against Ford?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think that. I don't know if their path is extremely small.
Well, and you already made the case that Ford might be the best dual team in the state. I mean, not just 3A.
I stand by that.
Right.
I really do stand by that. I think that the two closest things to a whole, I think that you could even point out in Ford's lineup might be at 106 and 285.
Right.
But from 113 to 220, monsters. Yeah. I mean, just there's no other way to put it. Just absolute monsters. Maybe 138, and Nasir Grant has been having a great year from Eastern Guilford. The kid is really slick on his feet.
Yeah. But you need 8. You need 8.
Exactly.
and that's pretty hard to get.
Yeah. And so I would say Nasir gets a win there, and 106 and 285 has a shot. But I still think those might be stealing it. I think Ford.
Let's jump down to your darlings in Ashe County as they take on North Henderson. Give us a little breakdown of this duel.
Man, it is exciting. I think it's really close. The thing about North Henderson is that they're very, very well coached, and Oy is another one of those guys that just always has his team ready. Ready for the moment, right? They're ready to come out there and scrap, and they all wrestle really tough. I think they're led by Portella, by Henry Portella there, and it's just Ashe County's got a lot of momentum right now, though, and that's the thing that worries me for North is just Ashe is really coming on strong.
All right, so give me. You and I are sitting next to one another in the gym, and you're going, this matchup right here is going to be super important to the outcome of this duel. Where does that matchup occur here?
120 and 126, I think.
Okay.
I think Fincher and Portella are the anchors of, and whew, man, either there or 152, Andrew Peterson and Vega there. I think that could be a really big one.
Okay, so who are you taking?
I'm going to go with North Henderson. I'm not going to doubt Coach Oy. I'm going to take North Henderson here. That one might be a homer pick, but I think it's a toss-up. I think this is a really – I will own that homer pick, okay, on this one because I don't know. I think this is a really tight duel. I think it's really close, and so I'm gonna go with the heart on this one and go with North Henderson.
All right. So Ryan, do you agree with him, and do you agree with the matchups that he was talking about?
Yeah, I agree with those matchups. I like the Vega brothers at 52 and 60 for North versus the Peterson brothers against Ashe County 52-60. I think those are really important to the duel. I think Ashe County's run to this point has been incredible, and but I think it ends here. I'm not going to pick against Coach Oy, Coach Knock, and the Knights. Some teams are just built for duels, and North has that team this year that is built for the duel tournament. And he got a team ready that was supposed to be down this year, and they're going to move on. They're going to move on and be in the state semifinals.
And you said they're built for the duels. Are they built well enough to knock out Ford and move into the finals?
I don't know if anybody's built well enough for that this year. Ford is built just built for
Ford tough, yeah.
Tough, yeah. They man, they're built to win a dual tournament where you have all the best teams around in, right? They're not just for the state duel tournament. So they're going to win both their duels handily on Wednesday night.
On Wednesday night. Rhett, do you agree with that assessment?
Like Michael Chandler said, they're built Ford tough, right?
Yeah.
He did a pretty cool video before. I think it was right before Lake Norman duels, actually. But I as soon as Ford had the tournament that they had at Lake Norman duels, I had no question they
were impressive.
I think they're the best tool. I think they're the best duel team in the whole state.
Yeah. All right, so wrapping everything up, we've gone through our picks and everything else. Rhett, we're going to go back and forth just a little bit to wrap this up. And that is, we'll start with Rhett and then we'll go to Ryan and so on and so forth. So Rhett, if there's one thing from Wednesday that's going to surprise everyone, what's the surprise?
Ooh. The one surprise I think is going to be how good Bandy's is.
Okay.
I think it's the margin of victory that they have, that they put
over
themselves
tough
into
teams.
Finals. Over tough teams. That's what it's going to be for me.
Okay. And Ryan, what's a big surprise that you think is going to happen as we leave Wednesday and go to Thursday?
I think people are going to be really surprised when Pinecrest beats Laney.
Okay. All right. No, I mean, that would be a surprise.
Yeah. No, seriously, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So if we can go and visit, and I'm going to start with Ryan this time, we can go and visit one quad. Out of all of these quads, what's the one quad you get to go visit?
Oh, I want to be at that Avery Robbinsville Mount Airy Swain one.
Okay,
at
you
Swain
want to be
County.
In 1A West.
Yeah, I want to be at the 1A West. I think it's just going to be the most, out of all the quads, I think it's going to have the best fanfare. Avery and Robbinsville's teams both travel really well. Swain County has a good fan base that'll be there as well. And I think it's just going to be loud and passionate. And we're going to see some top individual matches and some wild things we didn't expect.
All right, Rhett?
I'll go with the second favorite because I agree with Ryan's 100% for all of his reasons. The second one for me would be the Lake Norman quad because I think that that's going to be the most of our high-level wrestlers in one gym.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's really great. And that actually brings me to my final question, and that is, if there's one individual matchup throughout all these duels, and potential duels, you can go to potential duels.
Okay.
What is that one individual matchup that if you could, get it on Track Wrestling because you're somewhere else and you want to watch these two kids wrestle one another, what is that one individual matchup?
Ryan, you take it.
I'm going, give me Savoy New versus Devin Bell. Cardinal Gibbons versus Laney. I'm not sure if we'll see it. Like Rhett said, Devin Bell could be up a couple weights, but that's the one. Just because of how well Savoy New performed at Fargo versus how amazing Devin Bell has looked this year. That's my favorite, but there's so many good ones.
Yeah, there are so many good ones, and it's definitely a possibility. I mean, I'm just saying that if it does happen, that's a duel that's a matchup you want to watch. So, Rhett?
If it happened, Aldo Hernandez, Logan Torchel.
Okay.
I've been super high on Aldo Hernandez since I watched him last season at the 3A state tournament go on to win a state title. Kid is phenomenal. Logan Torchel is super tough too. I think two of our most slept on high level kids in the state.
Okay. Awesome. Well, guys, I appreciate you taking the time. We've been talking for a while. You've already warned me that it was going to take a little while. I see Rhett's got his Carolina blue on, even though he was at Campbell just this past Sunday.
I support. Look, hold on. I caught a lot of flack from App State, okay? And I love the Campbell program and Coach Scotty Sentes and the opportunities that they've given me there. But we're a North Carolina Wrestling Podcast. We support every program in the state. Our goal is that we want North Carolina to grow and continue to grow the sport of wrestling. That's on the college level, high school level, middle school, everything. And so anything that we can do to support all of the programs in our state, we want to.
Absolutely. And I was just giving you grief because, I had to, it was just one of those things. Well, so I think the last thing I have to say is you're going into surgery tomorrow and you're going to miss all the duels. So are you going to be, you and Ryan, are you get together on Thursday? Everybody needs to check it out. Are you guys going to go live? Ryan, do you know?
I'm not sure. We haven't decided yet.
Okay. Maybe you need to go live because if he's on Percocet, it really might be a very entertaining
we could get some good arguments there, couldn't we? Yeah, our last episode we did a YouTube live, and it went pretty well, and so we might put out a poll or something and see what our listeners want. And so we're gonna try and do it Thursday. Because I don't think I'll be able to tomorrow night. I came in, I shot the last episode, our last live one. I shot it about 4 hours after I broke everything in my elbow. I don't know if I can come out of surgery and go straight back into it, but
well, we wish you the best of luck tomorrow, and we wish everyone the best of luck. We hope you all wrestle very well. We're looking forward to some awesome duels, some great individual matchups. We wish you all the best of luck, and best of luck to everybody who wins and advances to Saturday's state finals. So, guys, I appreciate it. Yeah,
one thing we do want to go ahead and promote as well is the Sanction NC Wrestling movement. Really trying to make a big push to sanction the girls here in the state of North Carolina. We are going to be on Saturday, the same day as the state dual team finals. They're going to be kicking it off with the girls state finals in Greensboro at the Coliseum for that as well. Really trying to push that movement. We always want to talk about the girls and grow that movement of Sanction NC Wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, any last word?
Just thanks for having us on. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here with you. And man, you're the best covering all the high school wrestling in the Southeast, man. So thank you.
It's so much fun. I appreciate it, guys.